is a gift from you. We thank you for this gathering, and we thank you especially for the life of our brother, Lucius. His life was impactful. His life was a gift to humanity and also to your church all over. We thank you so much for the impact he made. And that is why we have gathered here today to honor him with this inaugural lecture so that his legacy continue to live on. We ask you to bless this gathering. May all our deliberations be according to your holy will. May they be fruitful so that it may be beneficial not only to his family, to his colleagues, but also to the whole society and their church on earth. Continue to bless us with your grace. Bless his family. Bless the children, the friends, and relations who have gathered here today. In all things, take the glory, Lord, and may your blessings be upon us, because we have placed all our trust in you through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
For the opening remarks, with deference, we invite the Honorable, the Chief Judge of Rivers State, my Lord, the Honorable Justice Simeon Chibuzo Amadi, DSSRS, Chairman of today's occasion. Thank you.
Let me apologize the absence of many of our judges. I came back from Abuja yesterday, and this morning when I asked, I was told that our judges did not receive invitation. In fact, some of them who are here visited me in my office this morning, and I told them that I was coming here. That's why you are seeing very few. I was told that it was the magistrates that received invitation, and I don't know how the invitation who delivered and how it did not get to the magistrate. C. Thompson is here because she was in my office this morning. Justice Wogu is here because he was in my office this morning. That's why judges are not here. So I am pleading that next time the invitation should come to me or the chief registrar or to the protocol session, because a person like Nwosu is a person that anything concerning him, the Rivers State Judiciary will always be involved because of the role he has played. Thank you. Honorable Justice Ejembi Eko, retired Justice of the Supreme Court, my lords, Justice of the Court of Appeal present here, my lord, Judges of the Federal High Court, Rivers State High Court, Customary Court of Appeal of Rivers State, here present. The Honorable Attorney General of Rivers State, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary and Solicitor General, Mrs. Clayton Ogolo, learned magistrates, His Royal Majesty, King Alfred Detesby, former governor of Old River State and now the Amiable of Brass. I'm sorry, learned senior advocates here and discussants. No. My lords, members of the inner and outer bar, members of the family of late Lucius Nwosu, SAN, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to chair this first memorial lecture in honor of our highly esteemed senior advocate of Nigeria, Lucius Nwosu, SAN, fondly called LE, or Papa Doc. Let me thank members of the Lucius Nwosu's family, his learned friends and members of his chamber for organizing this memorial lecture in his honor. It is my plea that this memorial lecture should be an annual event because of the positive contributions of Lucius Nwosu SAN to the legal profession, his act of generosity and human relationship. The topic for this memorial lecture is very germane, judging from the fact that the whole world is submerged in the menace of environmental problem and its consequential effects. The international community is troubled by various forms of environmental issues, and there is a call for all hands to be on deck to tackle this problem. It is against this backdrop that it has become imperative that we, as members of the legal profession, to also employ courtroom advocacy as a tool in tackling environmental issues. The law, as chief regulator of the society, plays very important role in checkmating actions of individuals, corporations, and government agencies on all issues, including environmental issues. Courtroom advocacy can only give the law the legal teeth to clamp down on violators. This does through courtroom advocacy that individuals, corporations, and government agencies can be held accountable for the injuries to the environment and human beings dependent on the environment. It is also via courtroom advocacy that aggrieved persons or communities can get adequately compensated for damages suffered as a result of pollution of environment. This is the area our honoree, late Lucius Nwosu, SAN, had his name written on gold. It is of elementary knowledge that late Lucius Nwosu SAN represented numerous individuals and communities on environmental issues in court, which resulted in the court giving judgment and awarding such individuals and communities compensation against oil companies, including government. Notably, are cases of SPDC, that Shea Petroleum Development Corporation Company against FARA, reported in 1995, 3 Nigeria Weekly Law Report, Part 3, 8-2, where Lucius Nwosu contributed significantly in the area of heads of claim in compensation matters. In the consolidated case of SDPC against Chief I.A. Domac, reported in 2009, Law Pavilion Electronic Law Report 3084, through the advocacy of Lucius Nwosu, the court awarded damages to some communities in Ogoni, River State, following the oil spillage from shale facilities, and this was affirmed by the Supreme Court. Also in suit number FAC/PAC/CS/2023/2001, Chief Isaac Osaro Abara and others against SPDC and others, which span over 30 years and traversed various courts in Nigeria. Lucius Nwosu, SAN, held on, and at the end, through his resilience and tenacity for justice, the court awarded compensation to the victims of the spillage. His achievements, which arguably were through advocacy in courtroom, brought about justice to the communities involved and act as deterrent to environmental harm perpetrators. Indeed, the life and times of Lucius Nwosu, SAN, attest to the benefit of the use of courtroom advocacy in curbing environmental issues and call for emulation. Once more, I commend the organizers of this memorial lecture for choosing a topic which is global in nature and for assembling an array of renowned speakers and discussants. The seasoned lead speaker, HMB Echo, GSC, was a judge of the High Court, Benue State, an acting chief judge of Benue State, a justice of Court of Appeal, and a retired justice of the Supreme Court, whose rulings and judgments are still resonating in our law reports. The first discussant, Tuduro 8-day SAN, is a very seasoned legal practitioner within our state and beyond. He is renowned in his advocacy on the areas of environmental pollution and compensation. The second discussant, Professor Victor Akujuru, is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration of Rivers State University. He is a professor of environmental evolution, who is also a seasoned environmentalist. With the caliber of speaker and discussant, I'm sure we will go home highly enriched. I urge us to sit back and enjoy the discussion. My lords, members of the Inner and Outer Bar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, it is my singular honor and privilege to declare this inaugural memorial lecture in honor of Lucius Nwosu, SAN, open. I thank you all for coming.
Will constitute the high table by a few persons and take a few recognitions before we'll go to the goodwill messages, musical interlude, and then we'll go for the cerebral part of today's occasion proper. The ushers are set. Please be watchful as we invite to the high table the Honorable Justice Mary Odili, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, retired, represented by Mrs. Onye Ile Esquire, please. We would also like to invite to the high table the man who is royalty and former governor, face of which is a shining star in Rivers State, His Excellency and former governor of Rivers State, His Majesty Alfred Dieta Spieth, Amayanabo of Tuan Brass, to the high table. You're welcome, sir. We also like to invite another legal colossus to the high table, Rafiu A. Rabana Lawal, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a few recognitions and then we'll go straight on to the goodwill messages. We'd like to recognize in our midst the presence of the Honorable Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Abia State, Ikechukwu Wana. Please put your hands together for the Honorable Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Abia State. We also have in our midst His Lordship, the Most Reverend Simeon Nwobi, CMF, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Ahira, Imbise, Imo State, who is ably represented by Reverend Father Walter C. Ihe Jirika, PhD, a professor in the University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome, sir. We also recognize in our midst the MD of Fidelity Bank PLC, Mrs. Neka Onyeli Ikpe, who is here ably represented by Mrs. Pamela Shodikbo, the Executive Director of Fidelity Bank PLC. You're welcome. for want of time, we'd like to take generic requisitions of all okay. We also like to recognize in our midst my senior and friend of my late boss, Birai Dambo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the Attorney General of Bayelsa State. You're welcome. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you. Who is here representing the Executive Governor of Bayelsa State? You're welcome. Please put your hands together for him. We also like to recognize in our midst the Vice Chancellor of the River State University, Professor N.S. Okobule. Please put your hands together for VC. We also like to recognize, Milords, the justices of the Supreme Court here present, Milords, the justices of the Court of Appeal, Milords, the judges of the various high courts in Nigeria here present, His Worships, the magistrates of the magistracy of the various states here present, His Honors, the chairmen and members of the customary court here present. We recognize everybody, including the family of the revered L.E. Nwosu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Sorry. Yes. We'd like to recognize Professor Y.O. Borodugo, the Grand Patron Government College, Mwaya Old Boys Association. You're welcome. While recognizing the family of the revered Eli Nwosu Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I would like to especially recognize the matriarch of that empire, Dr. Mrs. Chinelu Nwosu. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you. We'll take the vote of thanks shall be made by two eminent persons here. But before the vote of thanks, we'd like to specially recognize a close family friend with deep ties. In fact, best man to the revered learned senior advocate of Nigeria, for whom we're gathered here. We'd like to recognize the presence of Dr. T.C. Osanakbo, senior advocate of Nigeria. Please put your hands together for him. For the first vote of thanks, we'd like to call on the one-time president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Okay Wale, senior advocate of Nigeria. Please put your hands together as he wants to take the vote of thanks.
Bright, I'm giving a good news message, not vote of thanks. Sorry, sir. My love, the Chief Judge of Rivers State, Your Majesty, the first Governor of Rivers State, my lords, the family of our brother, departed brother, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite happy to give a good news message because Lucius Nwosu, as we knew him, was so much of the Port Harcourt branch of Nigerian Bar Association. It was such a trauma for many of us that we didn't have to give a court session in his honor in Port Harcourt. So we thank the family for at least bringing this one to us. There was really, in the last 40 years or more, you couldn't have talked about Port Harcourt branch without Lucius Nwosu. I saw in the program, some have called him all sorts of names. It was one man who took every name you called him. I saw Ekwensu in that human being that answered Ekwensu will answer you. Papa D was a popular one with many of us. He was there for everybody. He was a special kind of person. He was very popular at the Port Harcourt Bar. Papa D was somebody that you would have a case with. He's the only man that I knew that did that. I won't go on. But I can tell you that I knew him very well. We crossed swords. We walked along in many cases. And I can tell you that he was a very gifted person, a very brilliant and intelligent man. He had a very successful practice. I was talking to somebody the other day in a bank who wanted us to do a brief for him. And I said to him that what you're offering us is not acceptable. He said, do you want to behave like Mr. Nwosu? He brought one brief to Nwosu. He knows, I know there are bankers who are here, but they have this knack for cutting down our fees. They don't think that we deserve good fees. And Lucius said, come, thank you for coming here. But I'll refer to another person. You can't pay me. Bluntly. And the man left and went to the person Mr. Nwosu recommended him to. And that's what Papa did for you. So, all I can say at this point is I thank the family for this. I pray that you continue to do this, as my Lord the Chief Judge has referred, I made mention of before. We'll move around. That's something that is lacking in this part of the country. I've always complained about this. Outside this area, moving around in those days of MBA activities, you found these things in the Southwest mostly, and all of these places. But in Port Harcourt, we don't honor our heroes. So I thank Mrs. Nwosu and the children for doing this. And I pray that God continues to enable you to continue to do this in His memory. Thank you, and God bless us all.
For the second goodwill message with deference, may we invite Honorable Justice Mary Odili, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, retired, through her representative, Mrs. Onye Ile Esquire.
My Lord, the Chief Judge of Rivers State, my Lords, respected learned silks, learned magistrates, our family, the Lucius Nwosu family, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'll first apologize on behalf of my Lord, Honorable Justice Mary Odili, who is unavoidably absent due to national duties she had to attend to in Abuja. Daily Shoes, as we fondly called him, knew us and grew up with my Lord Justice Odili when they were quite young. They attended the same parties in the village then. And we, the younger ones, Daily Shoes knew us from birth. And until he died, he kept on calling me Nwonyinye, which is like little Onyinye. We never grew up in his eyes. And Lucius was quite kind to all that came across his path. And today we are truly grateful that this inaugural lecture is taking place in his honor. And we wish that it will continue. Zims and your brother and Chinelo, our brother's wife, keep the flag flying. Lucius was a good man. And may God reward each and every one of you for honoring today. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. In the next couple of minutes, we shall get to brass task. But for now, to put us in the mood for the intellectual journey we're about to take, we have put up the C sax, a group of a four-man quartet and a saxophonist to give us some tunes to put us in that stead. I present to you the C sax.
Can I suffice for the things you have done for me? The things so undeserved, yet you gave to prove your love for me. And the voices of a million angels could not express my gratitude. All that I have and ever hope to be, I owe it all to thee. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. To God be the glory for the things He has done. With His blood, He saved me. With a smile, He has raised me. To God be the glory for the things He has done.
Oh, just let me live my life. Let it be pleasing, Lord, to thee. And should I gain any praise, let it go to Calvary.
His Lord, His
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 Thank you. That was the C sax putting us in the mood for the cerebral part of this event. We have the lecture and indeed the panel discussion arising therefrom to start now. The use of courtroom advocacy in addressing environmental issues. The lead discussant is already ensconced tightly on the lounge chairs specifically designed for this purpose. And so we have Ejembi Eko, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, retired, who is already seated. We also already have seated, flanking him, Tuduru Ede, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, seated. And of course, we have Professor Victor Akujuru, who is already seated also. We have a moderator that will join them, who is already on the high table and will be, with honor, asked to sit with them. Rafiu A. Rabana Lawal, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We shall join them as moderator, and as I have been urged to beg, shall take the brief citation of the lead speaker once he's standing before we invite him to the podium. Thank you, sir.
My Lord, the chairman of this occasion, all the eminent personalities on the high table, members of Lucius Nwosu, the great family we are celebrating today, my colleagues at Inaba, my lords, I could see honorable judges of the Federal High Court. I can also see that of the State High Court. My Lord Chikere, you are most welcome. I can see you from far off. Well, my task is to just briefly introduce Honorable Justice Ejembi Eko. And my Lord, this is one of the few occasions we can ask you to stand up and while we take your citation. Well, we normally stand up to address you, but on this occasion, you have to. So, well, he is a man that his CV is within the public domain. For anybody to rise from a private legal practitioner to the bench as a high court judge, and to also have served in the capacity of Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, before becoming a high court judge and subsequently becoming a justice of the Court of Appeal and eventually the Supreme Court. He's a man who has taken his time to climb the judicial ladder with due diligence, commitment, and integrity. It is not easy. It is not easy for anyone to go through all that process and still get to the top and retire gloriously. Our lead speaker today retired from the Supreme Court gloriously. When he was appointed a High Court judge in Benue State in the year 1989, he was one of the youngest at that time. And he was so radical that people thought from his background as a private practitioner to going through the Ministry of Justice to become a permanent secretary, it was going to be difficult for him to cope as a judge. But whereas he did excel during the military era, he was a lone voice in the state that made some pronouncements protecting the rule of law and always urging for democracy. So my Lord is a jurist par excellence. And because he served so diligently, he was appointed the acting chief judge of the old Benue State. If you know the old Benue State, comprising of now Kogi and present-day Benue and part of Plateau at that time. So you can see the enormous responsibilities. And he also discharged that office diligently without any blemish. And when the time came for elevation to the Court of Appeal, he had a smooth sail. There was no single petition against him. And in fact, the whole state and the zone supported him to get to the Court of Appeal. So he was elevated to the Court of Appeal. And at the Court of Appeal, he served for so long in Port Harcourt. And for anybody to serve in Port Harcourt here without a rough fight with the lawyers or the people around here, you know he's really a great mind. I'm sure the lawyers here can. I'm sure he did not run into foul. There were no gossips about anything about him by way of misconduct, inducement, or biased. He was just a jurist par excellence. So he left the Port Harcourt division and proceeded to Abuja. And for you to also survive at the Abuja Court of Appeal division, where all manner of political cases come and all manner of injunctions are sought for, and for you to also survive there without any blemish, also attests to his character as a worthy person. He left Abuja division and served briefly in Ado Ekiti before he was elevated to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. And for those who are into advocacy, if you go through the law reports, you could see a variety of his judgments, some very radical pronouncements. You will recall that he was one of those who started with that if you pay the appropriate filing fee, that's in Port Harcourt here. So you know that your process is not proper. Although along the line, it was somersaulted. You also recall that he was one of those who also championed the cause that you cannot sign for as a legal practitioner. Your name must be indicated on your process, which I think also now taught so many of us the lesson. Before, you found out that processes are filed, lawyers will not indicate their name, they will just legal practitioners or for somebody. And he said, no, you must be a legal practitioner enrolled at the Nigerian bar. And therefore, when you put down your name, we can confirm and ascertain you are truly a judge and you are truly a lawyer enrolled to practice in Nigeria. That also became one of the cases that changed the face of how we file our processes. And lastly and lately, several cases of the LPDC that went to the Supreme Court. For those who are familiar with LPDC, that is the disciplinary committee of the body of benchers that sanctions lawyers who are engaged in misconduct. He also came with a radical position. At that body, you know, lawyers and judges who are members, a panel member will sit today, tomorrow another member will sit, another time a different member will sit. And the man said no, that for you to have a valid trial and to participate, the people who started the disciplinary process of hearing must be the same people that will complete the process. And on that note, one or two senior advocates got off the hook. So, my Lord, I have before you today Honorable Justice Ejembi Eko, Justice of the Supreme Court. Please, while you step forward here to present your paper.
Thank you, Mr. Ravana. He says I have radical views. So I'll continue with that radicalism today, but it won't be rascality. I will start with protocols. I'm not so versed in protocols, so I'll simply start with ladies and gentlemen, as the Americans do. But I have before me the matriarch or the Nwosu, early Nwosu family. I recognize and I welcome you. You will now be the point of contact between us and the rest of the family. I recognize the Amanyanabo of Brass, the first governor of Rivers State. Having said all this, I say, ladies and gentlemen, my Lord, spiritual and temporal, you are welcome. I will start with a personal experience. I was far away outside Nigeria. I had a chat with Lucius in the night, and he said my son was with him, and I was told they were together until 11 p.m. Then I don't know whether it was a vision. I was visited by Lucius in all white, hand gloves, trousers, socks, shirt, and then he was sort of waving. A few hours after that, because of the time zone, my son called that Lucius has passed on. I screamed, what happened? He said he was on his way to the house. Well, maybe, as Shakespeare would put it, brief candle. Maybe that's why I saw the candle and then, but he was gone. Now, today is the first memorial lecture in memory of the great man we are celebrating. I am reading from the iPad, the paper I presented. The hard copy in the brochure may not be complete. And like the woman who gave testimony in the church, I had an alternative, so I give honor and glory to God for that. So I'll draw your attention to pages 10 and 11. There's something missing there. Paul said, there was amongst us a distinguished gentleman. He had physically ceased to be with us today. Death snatched him away from us. He was an eminent legal luminary, hailing from Umbise clan of Imo State. He practiced law in the top brass from here in Port Harcourt, the Federal Capital Territory, and he was a senator, a notable passionate in his own right. He was not physically a giant in the caliber of Goliath, but figuratively among lawyers, he was such a towering figure. He had a passion for philanthropy and was ever ready to help a friend and those in need. Like Mahatma Gandhi, he was a fellow-feeling character with lots of empathy, benevolence, and tender heartedness. He cheerfully sought to assist and assisted his less privileged colleagues and others who were either sick or in their need. When an exuberant governor of Rivers State closed the courts, the high courts particularly, under the pretext of renovation, his ulterior purpose being actually to frustrate the filing of likely actions challenging his unpopular policies. Eli Nwosu, for short Eli, went out of his own to pay certain categories of junior lawyers stipends for several months. The governor's malady persisted. Beneath his not too large a physique, he had a compassion of an elephant with the heart of a lion. Turning his back at a fight was not his character. His advocacy was always bold and courageous, and he had a gift of humorous repartee, adorned with rustic folk proverbs to adumbrate on any issue. With these attributes, he ruled the jungle of jurisprudence and litigation, and like the fox, he outwitted several legal luminaries in courtroom advocacy. Was very wise in procedure. Very much have. For this, a story was told that the legendary Chief F.R.A. Williams, SAN, in a friendly banter, after an argument in court, had jokingly retorted, "You are not Lucius, but Lucifer." A good lawyer is not necessarily the first-class law student, as I've always said in every forum I went. Rather, a good lawyer is that lawyer who, at any given moment, is abreast of the applicable rules of procedure and is so well knowledgeable and cognizant of either the provisions or principles of the law on the issue at hand. Lucius was not an all-roads legal practitioner. He selected his area of practice and specialized in it. His chosen area was generally environmental laws with more emphasis on oil and gas and related issues. His clients were largely communities ravaged by oil spillage, ranging from Mogoniland to Akwa Ibom, including also to Bayelsa. I never came across at any instance or occasion where and when Eli Nwosu, SAN, ever represented an oil company or oil major in an upstream sector against individuals or communities. He has disdain for political cases, particularly election and electoral jurisprudence. He once told me that there's a lot of uncertainty in that area, so he won't go there. Some observers of our subject, senior advocates, say he was brutally too frank to tolerate any shenaniganism of any accused person or on trial for committing criminal offenses. He made his remark predominantly in the field of oil and gas, if I may repeat, and related matters within the terrain of environmental laws. I'm coming. In June 1998, Eli Nwosu, then barely 15 years at the bar, had to file the case of Monopo against Mobile Production Nigeria Unlimited and Mobile USA incorporated in USA, claiming against the two defendants jointly and severally a total sum of 5 billion naira on behalf of the two communities for ecological damages and injurious affection. There were two sets of plaintiffs, the suits having the same substratum against the same defendants were consolidated. Only the first defendant, the subsidiary of the second defendant, entered appearance and filed statement of defense. The second defendant The second defendant neither entered appearance nor had filed any statement of defense at the time the plaintiffs closed their case. And the court witnesses, including professional valuers and experts on ecological matters. At the close of the plaintiff's case, the defendants, through their counsel, entered a no-case submission via the motion on notice. Thereupon, early, the counsel for the plaintiffs filed a motion for judgment against the second defendant in default of pleadings, for judgment in default of pleadings and on the plaintiff's evidence. Both motions were argued together, and upon early concluding his arguments on the motions, particularly the motion for judgment, the defense sought and was granted adjournment to reply. On the adjourned day, the defense was absent, apparently in a dilatory tactic. He later filed motion for extension of time within which to file the statement of defense of the second defendant. The trial judge subsequently dismissed the no-case submission of the second defendant. Thereafter proceeded to entering judgment in favor of the plaintiffs. The defendants appealed, the Court of Appeal, finding no merit in their appeal, dismissed them. In the further appeal to the Supreme Court, Mobile Production Unlimited and Monoco 2003, legal LPELR 1886 SC, the Apex Court, after resolving most of the issues against the appellant, held that the failure or refusal of the trial court to consider the motion on notice for extension of time within which the second defendant will file a statement of defense amounted to denying him fair hearing, the right to which was his fundamental right under the Constitution. The Monoco case became a locus classicus. However, it raised some pertinent questions as well. The two courts below, having found that the defendants appellant were engaging themselves in dilatory tactics or time-wasting gimmicks, was the filing of the motion for extension of time to the second defendant to file his defense out of time, not itself an abuse of court process. I didn't answer the question. I just put it as a rhetorical. Would the Supreme Court not have resorted to his own general powers vested by Section 22 of the Supreme Court Act to assume jurisdiction over the whole proceeding as if the proceedings had been instituted and prosecuted in the Supreme Court at the court of first instance and rehear the case in whole or in part, or may remit to the court below for the purpose of such rehearing, or may give such directions as to the manner in which the court below shall deal with the case in accordance with the powers of the court. Similar powers are vested in the Supreme Court by Order 8, Rule 12 of the Supreme Court Rules. Since delay defeats equity, and equity does not assist the indolent, and in this case, the party choosing altruistic and mischievous indolence, the Supreme Court should have, in its wide discretion, considered the exercising the powers vested in it by Section 22 of his enabling act and Order 8, Rule 12 of their rules. The Monoco case, to the credit of the young advocate, then gave the Supreme Court anxious moments. Most of the justices of the appeal panel had each subsequently congratulated him. And most of them, in fact, this was a case that assisted him in no small way when he applied for the SIP. More take-home from Monoco case includes the incisive and expensive investigations undertaken by Eli prior to his filing the suit to establish the links and nexus between Mobile Production Nigeria Unlimited and the overseas parent company, Mobile Incorporated of USA. Similarly, he committed handsome expenditure to get experts and professional valuers to undertake the field assessment of the ecological damages for the purpose of their subsequent evidence. He did the same thing in Osaro case and several others. Several other oil and gas matters from Akwa Ibom and Osaro, and much to his credit, victory was his own. This in salute to his astute enterprise had become his proclivity in all similar cases. He was a child soldier in the Biafra army. He must have acquired the spirit of nulla deditio, Latinism for always be ready, diligent, and vigilant. From the slogan of the Biafran army, the prize of liberty is external vigilance. With apologies to the Mananyambo, who fought on the side of the federal troops. The enterprise and the contributions to the body of environmental laws and jurisprudence did not go unnoticed. The Supreme Court, acknowledging Ellie's enormous work and huge contributions to environmental laws and jurisprudence, invited him and other jurists as amici curiae in the Center for Oil Pollution against NNPC. Citation is provided. His contributions assisted the court in deciding inter alia that the rights to life, as well as clean water, clean environment, air, water, land, and forest, being rights guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, an African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights Ratification and Enforcement Act for the development and safeguard of human communities, versus local standing on either an individual or the community, and even a non-governmental organization, NGO, to challenge any nuisance by way of pollution or seepage into the river, stream, or underground water, providing the community a source of livelihood and drinking water. The Apex Court had earlier in Fawemi against the governor, Lagos State, Fawemi against Akilu, held that every Nigerian, being his brother's keeper, had a standing in law to enforce penal laws where a crime had been committed. The Center for Oil Pollution case was a major development, not only in the body of environmental laws, but also in the area of the vexed issue of local standing. It liberalized the law on local standing. Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, SPDC, had been a major player in oil and gas exploration in Nigeria, particularly in the Niger Delta area. By way of just chipping in, his battles with Niger Delta, battles with oil and gas must have started from when Shell unceremoniously disengaged his father as an employee. The company had entered into lease agreements with the communities that held customary rights of occupancy over parcels of land for purposes of their business. In SPDC against Amadi and others, 2011, I wrote the lead. The SPDC, while remaining as a tenant of Okoro community or family, had subsequently, albeit surreptitiously, obtained a statutory right of occupancy wherein the customary right of occupancy of their landlords were purportedly extinguished in favor of the SPDC, who now, armed with the statutory right of occupancy, was no longer obligated to pay agreed rents to their landlords. Early briefed by the customary landowners, undertook a thorough pre-litigation forensic investigations that exposed the fact of SPDC having surreptitiously obtained the offensive statutory right of occupancy. He took out forfeiture against the SPDC, which resulted in both the orders of forfeiture against SPDC and the nullification of the statutory right of occupancy. A Japanese auto manufacturer had this advert: good thinking, good product. That, to me, is a summary of the life and law practice of Lucius Eze Akamadu Nwosu. Amazed by how the maverick early achieved his feats in litigation, junior lawyers nicknamed Ekwensu, which I'm told in Igbo means wizard. I used to buy for my children in those days a novel titled The Wizard of the Law, the author of which I no longer remember. The novel told the story of a brilliant, astute, and resourceful lawyer. It was the Nigerian equivalent of the American Perry Mason series created by Stanley Gardner, which in no small way nudged me to reading law I'm sure the junior lawyers, unlike the FRA William SAN, who jokingly christened Lucius as Lucifer, decided to nickname Eli Nwosu Ekwensu, having in their formative years read the Wizard of the Law and having in their early days seen their mentor in real life practice of wizardry of law in Eli Nwosu. It is good to be good at all times. Lucius was in his lifetime good in all his endeavors. Let me conclude this discourse stating, as John Wesley would say, that Eli Nwosu did his best he could in all the ways he could, and at all the times he could, in all the places he could, to all the people he could, and more by all the means he could. I remember my 2 terms tenure here in Port Harcourt. For every Easter, for every Christmas, he brought truckloads of rice to give to the staff of the Court of Appeal. And I'm told also he repeated the same in all the courts, particularly the federal courts. Using all the parameters at my disposal, particularly Jeremy Benton's felicitous calculus, Lucius Nwosu was a good man, a very literate and learned gentleman, a quintessential jurist, a shrewd and astute advocate, and a philanthropist par excellence. The body of this enigmatic Lucius Nwosu may lie molten in the grave, but he still lives eternally with us. And to him I say shalom. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Well, we've had the lead presentation by my Lord Honorable Justice Ajembi Echo, and of course, who majored in environmental cases and issues and disputes. He was also a very thoroughbred lawyer who would prepare his brief very well, and his law with his personal gift of reaching out to everyone that come across him. So may I now invite the next panelist and our people that, with the permission of the chairman, you have, maybe, okay, I understand you sit down there. We'll bring the mic to you to be very brief. You have about 15 minutes each. The day is far spent. The first person to make his contribution will be Tuduru Ede. He doesn't need much introduction. He's part of you here. He has served as the chairman of Ahoada branch and now the managing partner of Turudu Ede & Co. He is also an environmentalist. So please, you have 15 minutes to make your contribution. With the floor.